Okay, so we're in downtown Muscatine, Iowa, along the banks of the mighty Mississippi. And Muscatine, Iowa is known as the pearl button capital of the world. So basically, pearl buttons are made out of the shell of clams. And it resulted in a boom because the clam shells were then sold to the local button factories. The boom was short-lived, however. In the mid-20th century, plastics kind of took over for pearl because it was a lot cheaper. So the story of clam fishing in Muscatine is the story of the pearl button industry, which for decades made Muscatine the pearl button capital of the world. So the discovery of valuable freshwater mussel shells in the Mississippi River fueled a boom known as the gold rush of the Midwest. So this brings us to the Muscatine History and Industry Center, which is home to the National Pearl Button Museum. Okay, we're talking to Veda Baker, and she works here at the National Pearl Button Museum. And maybe she could give us a little history lesson on how Muscatine became the pearl button capital of the world.
I certainly can. Well, the pearl button industry here in Muscatine started in 1891 by one gentleman migrating here from Germany, around Hamburg. His name was John Beppel. Mr. Beppel was what they call a horn turner over in Germany, and horn turners were button makers. He made buttons out of antlers, cow horns, cow hooves, turtle shell, but the one that made him the most income was the ocean clam shell. What I'm getting at is what brought him here to Muscatine. So for generations, his family made a good living making pearl buttons out of the ocean clam shell that he had to have imported to his workshop. Now during that era, pearl buttons are a sign of wealth, and only the wealthy people could afford them and would adorn their clothes with them. Once the government of Germany put a tariff on these shells, he could not make a profit. So if you excuse me for just a moment, I'm going to show you what a family member had sent to him from the United States. They sent him some of our freshwater mussel shells. This one is about 175 years old. You can tell by counting the rings, just like a tree. So Mr. Beppel got this out from underneath his little workbench. He dusted it all off, and he's thinking to himself, I'm packing my bags, and I'm going to the United States, and that's what he did. Once he got here to Muscatine, he built himself a foot-powered lathe with a hole saw drill, and he began drilling out the button blanks. And they say the first dozen buttons that Mr. Beppel made, he sold for 10 cents to a local department store. Well, that opened the eyes to everybody in Muscatine, and pretty soon we were producing 1.5 billion pearl buttons annually by 1905. We had 24 finishing plants and hundreds of blanking operations. And a blank would be when a person would just go out into the river and get the mussels, bring them in, and then drill out the button blanks. The button blanks would become out of shells like this. And then these spent shells would just be tossed back into the river or in their backyard, wherever they drilled them. Now, every single button blank would have been handled 30 times before it become a finished product. 30 different stages it would go through. So it was a very, intensive work schedule, and it said that we actually doubled Muscatine's population from 9 to 18,000. And at least 9,000 people were working for the factories, or in them, or in their backyards, whatever. And it was pretty evident in the early 1900s that the mussels near our city were being depleted. So McKee Button Company set up what is called blanking operations in every river in the Midwest. The Midwest of the United States in the early years had over 300 species of freshwater mussels, bigger than this one. And we had the largest amount of freshwater mussels of any place in the world. The button industry did wipe out half of those 300 species, and the rest are all on the endangered list. But we were making some beautiful buttons out of this mother of the pearl.
I bet. So what's the difference between a pearl button and a plastic, or can't you even really tell the difference?
Well, being a button collector, I can tell the difference by looking at them. But for a novice, all you have to do, if you have a jar of buttons or a plate of buttons, you pick that button up. You put it on your cheek. If that button is cold, you know it is a pearl button. It will always be cold. You can hold it in your hand and it'll warm up, but you release it and that coldness comes back. That's the easiest and quickest way to tell.
So did the mussel population regrow in the Mississippi?
It is regrowing. Of course, the 150 species that are extinct aren't coming back. But the University of Iowa biologists and other biologists in the Midwest are propagating them off-site. We propagate them out at the Fairport Fish Hatchery and put them back into the rivers. So we're trying to get them reestablished so we'll have some clean waters again.
Yeah. So how many visitors would you say you get a year here?
Oh my goodness. Well, this year has really flourished. I think we've gotten, and don't quote me on this, but I think around 4,000 visitors. I might be wrong, but it's pretty darn close. And that has slowly increased since I've been here in the last 12 years. Saturdays are great for us, and now we have the steamboats that are coming in on a regular basis during the summer, and they just bring in hundreds of people at a time.
You ever, anybody famous ever come in? About Minnie Pearl, about her?
No, she has not been here. But a long time ago, I did see Helen Hayes, the actress, down at the riverfront when the Delta Queen came in.
Oh, nice, nice.
With that, I don't know of any other famous person that came in.
Okay, so are pearl buttons worth anything now since they're pretty rare, or?
If you are a collector, and if you love pearl buttons, you will pay up to $600 for a fancy pearl button.
For one pearl
Yes.
button? How much have you paid for one?
I have paid $150 for a pearl button. That's the most I paid. But I just come from the National Button Collectors Convention in Springfield, and those ladies are avid collectors, and they will pay a lot for any type of button.
Yeah.
But the pearl buttons are, to me, very special.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to go check out my mom's jar of buttons and see if I got a small fortune
Sure. And
in there.
I told you how to tell a pearl button.
Absolutely,
Put it on your
absolutely.
cheek and it'll be cold.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Well, Muscatine, Iowa is the gift that keeps on giving. We've been looking for this, and now we finally found it. The largest watermelon slice in the world. We'd already been to the second largest watermelon slice in Green River, Utah, so we had to come.